Tracy Lovvorn is with us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. And I know for some ungodly reason, I have made three different ways of saying Lovvorn. Forgive me. I apologize. Um,
I've been
but
called a lot worse.
oh, in Massachusetts, likewise in Washington D.C., I know the feeling.
Oh,
But
it's rough.
it is, Tracy. You have one of the most likely upset opportunities if you would receive the financial support from people around the country, some in critical blue states like New Mexico, California, Virginia. Those individual states, if they sent support to you, you would have a chance to overcome Jim McGovern. Tell me exactly why, Tracy, it is so important for conservatives to support your campaign for Congress.
Well, I tell you what, right this second, yeah, like I told you, I ran in 2018. All right. I ran against, at the time, a 22-year incumbent, Jim McGovern, who had
Uh-huh.
never had anybody run against him in this district. We, in Massachusetts in 2010, because of the census, we lost a congressional member and we were redistricted, and his district changed. And so our district really inherited Jim McGovern. He was never voted in, and nobody's ever ran against him here since 2010, in 10 years. So when I was running against him in 2018, I really spent a lot of time answering the question, who's our congressman? Where do I live? What has he done? And we really spent a lot of time establishing that. Now, I ran against him and I spent a total of $36,000 in a congressional race. He
Mm-hmm.
spent $1 million. He outspent me 36-1. It was absolutely ridiculous. And you know what? I got 33% of the vote.
Yes.
I've never I've never held position in politics. And honestly, I worked full time while I did it. I own a small outpatient physical therapy clinic, and I was working full time, doing my social media, going to every event possible, doing every parade, going to everywhere I could. I didn't have mailing. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have radio ads.
Mm-hmm.
I had Facebook. I barely have a Twitter following even now. And I got 33% of the vote.
Yeah.
Now when they redistricted Massachusetts, we were the 13th most gerrymandered state in the union.
You ain't lying.
And we have two bookends in the district.
Mm-hmm.
That Worcester City, which is the second largest city in New England,
Yep.
and Northampton, which is out in Western Mass. Now, Northampton, a lot of times will fly the UN flag over their city hall. that's, so that's what I need to overcome. But what's different is in 2010, when they redistricted, we have a lot of small towns in Massachusetts. So my
Yes.
district has about 60 communities, towns and cities. So a lot of the towns are very small populations. Well, in the last 10 years, those populations have grown significantly. Now, what's also interesting, in Massachusetts, the number of registered Republicans is very small, no
Yeah.
doubt. In my district, it's only about 14%. But we have the number of independent voters across Massachusetts is more than the Republicans and the Democrats combined. And more people have gone from the Democrat Party to the Independent Party over the last few years. So there's really, and there's a sense here, especially in central Massachusetts, of being
Yes.
a true Democrat, a JFK Democrat who asks what you can do for your country, not what your country can do for you. And their party has really left them. And if I had a way to get a message to my JFK Democrats that, look, JFK would be an alt-right extremist
Yes, he would.
in this day and age. you
He
know,
would.
and just to show them that I'm a real person with real ideas and solutions for our area. I think we have a tremendous chance, but to
Tracy,
get that information to people, I need the resources.
Tracy, I saw the statistics. 33%. First and foremost, I applaud you because I couldn't imagine anyone getting 33% in Massachusetts. I thought that was like a statistical error of some type.
With
33%.
$36,000.
Exactly. So there is a tremendous demand to change in Massachusetts. Maybe not party, but they do want to change from the venue that people have used to make political opposition. Uh, in
That,
terms of being an independent, and if you were to speak to independents right now, if I'm sitting here and I've been facing COVID, I've been facing uh, the the number of individuals dying, and the fact that there's a promise of a vaccine, and I've lost my job because the business that I work for is no longer out there. And it looks kind of hopeless as we're getting ready to go into the fall. What do you tell me that would make me want to vote for you?
well, first and foremost, I am you. I am a small business owner. I do work full time. I had to close my doors for over 4 months. And so here I am running a congressional campaign, and I'm doing a startup. I'm restarting my business at the same time. Jim McGovern's never had a job outside. He did an internship out of college for Congressman Moakley. He volunteered for George McGovern's presidential campaign. He's never had a job ever. So I am you. I'm going through the exact same things. My kids go to school. They graduated from Grafton High School. I live in the town of Grafton, Massachusetts. Jim McGovern's kids, went to private school in DC.
Yeah.
Again, I am you, and I'm living this with you. I'm in healthcare, so I understand it. I worked in skilled nursing facilities for over 20 years of my career, and I was in healthcare compliance, Medicare compliance. In 2009, I uncovered Medicare fraud and patient abuse for a company that I was working for. And I brought that to the attention of the company I was working for. And I was excited. I was hoping they were going to say, okay, let's go fix it. And instead they fired me. And
Wow.
I was fired, and I was angry, and I was upset, and I fought back. And it took me forever to find attorneys to help me do that. And I
Mm-hmm.
ended up working with the Department of Justice, the Department of Health and Human Services, the U.S. Attorney General's office, the U.S. Assistant Attorney General's office in Philadelphia. And after about 4 or 5 years, we won. And this company, who was based in Canada, ended up having to divest all their operations across the United States. They're no longer in the United States. They're no longer taking advantage of our Medicare program, and they're no longer abusing seniors. And that case set a precedent across all skilled nursing, and now multiple cases have come forward, and hundreds of millions of dollars have been returned to Medicare, and patients are no longer subject to that abuse. The reason why I'm telling you this story is how passionate I am about our seniors in skilled nursing communities. In
Mm-hmm.
Worcester County, one of the counties I'm representing in this district, 75% of our coronavirus deaths came from our skilled nursing facilities.
Wow.
75%. Now you can add Massachusetts, New York, and New Jersey has about 10% of our population of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But those three states have over 40% of our coronavirus deaths, with primarily being in our skilled nursing centers. Now, we knew it was going to attack our skilled nursing centers. It started out west. It started in Washington.
Yeah.
And a life care center out there, they lost 30 residents very quickly. We knew it was going to hit the elderly. We knew it was going to hit the elderly that were compromised medically. And instead of getting the resources that we know we needed to those communities, my congressman was running around fighting Donald Trump. That's all
Yeah.
he was doing, is resisting and fighting. He wasn't helping. Donald Trump has been in office just 3.5 years. Jim McGovern has been in office over 23 years. He's worked with Democrats. He's worked with Republicans. He's been in the majority. He's been in the minority. But over 23 years, what has he done for us? Worcester County, again, Worcester is the second largest city in all of New England. We are number 5 on the list in the whole United States for homeless students. Number
Wow.
5. We're
Really?
in the top 20. We're in the top 20. USA Today, from even before coronavirus, the top 20 most poverty-ridden cities in the United States, putting us on a scale with Detroit and Baltimore. 20% of our population makes less than $15,000 a year. And that's
Wow.
in our main city. If you start looking at cities around our district, we're hurting. Right now, we have 8 identified areas that are on Dr. Carson's opportunity zone
Yes.
list, all around our district, 8 of them that we could
This
be working with the federal government to make better. But instead, my guy chooses to resist and fight. And he's fighting Donald Trump, but we're the ones losing. And
you
it's time
I
for some big changes.
Tracy, there are people who are sitting at home who watch the ambush of Donald Trump in the town hall last week. And the question put to him regarding COVID was, I think it was an affront, but the way that he answered it was in glowing humility. He toned down the rhetoric regarding COVID, but he raised up the efforts in trying to get COVID resolved in America. I thought that was a very compassionate, humble way of expressing his commitment to the American people. But there are American peoples out here today that blame him for over 200,000 Americans dying from COVID. They blame him for not being ready, for not being prepared, for calling it a hoax, although he never did. As a health provider in your community, what are you hearing regarding Donald Trump's work? And are people trusting what Jim McGovern has done on the COVID front?
You know, it's so, and I'm wondering, I'm assuming it's the same way across the United States.
Yeah.
You know, it is so polarizing,
Mm-hmm.
so polarizing. There's not a lot of middle ground. We're in a very blue state. But I tell you what, a lot of people are seeing so much. You can't help but you go to the CDC website and they'll tell you right there that 96% of all COVID deaths across the United States happen to very elderly patients that, again, had 2 or more comorbidities, meaning they had other illnesses. And
Yes.
we were told by Dr. Birx that anybody that died with coronavirus was labeled a coronavirus death. And we know that the hospitals got paid extra money for a coronavirus death.
Yes.
And so there's a group of people that see that crystal clear, knowing that somebody that died of a heart attack who happened to test positive for coronavirus death was treated as a coronavirus death. And again, looking at our skilled nursing centers, we could have prevented a lot of those had we focused where we know the problem was going to be. We have nursing
Mm-hmm.
home administrators, even here in Massachusetts, that did fabulous, that got the PPE that they needed, that got their staffing in line and in control, that told their families to stay away, that isolated people and did a wonderful job and had 0 coronavirus related deaths. So it was possible to manage this problem.
Do you
But
believe?
instead, again, 75% of our deaths. And what I'm asking right now is, okay, knowing that we're going into the fall,
Yeah.
and knowing that our skilled nursing centers are extremely, at risk, what are we doing to prepare for that? Knowing that the flu is coming, it's a very challenging time anyway in that environment. But what if, that coronavirus might come back or spike that up again? That's where our focus needs to be. We know that's the focus. We're
Would you?
we're right now focusing on our schools. There's not been one person that's under the age of 20 that's died in Massachusetts.
Would
We
you?
need to focus where the problem is, and that's our skilled nursing centers.
Would you appropriate special funding to go directly to the skilled nursing facilities in terms of PPEs and other? Um, some people would say it is a um, useless drug, but hydroxychloroquine and
Oh,
other tools.
it's absolutely insane what they did to hydroxychloroquine. The president telling us to drink bleach. My congressman says that over and over again, and I proved to him, no, he didn't. And there
Yeah.
really is light therapies that go in and disinfect the lungs, but facts don't matter to these people. What I would do first and foremost is the federal survey process that governs regulations and skilled nursing home, that's provided by the state. We have available to us data to know every skilled nursing facility in every state, and we can identify which ones historically have had problems with staffing issues, employees, maybe not having enough. We know which ones in the past had problems with hand washing procedures and just basic, cleanliness. We know historically where the centers that needed help are. All we had to do was go to the state, find out where those centers are, and then go help them. And we already had the resources. We already have the resources. We had the National Guard that stood up at the
Hmm.
time, back in March and April. Back in March and April, we had doctors and nurses that were on furlough from the hospitals because they weren't seeing outpatients. They weren't doing outpatient procedures or surgeries.
Yeah.
We had nurses, doctors of abundance. We set up field hospitals that were empty. We had all the resources we needed. We just needed a congressman to be able to go to the Department of Health and Human Services in DC, to be able to ask the Centers for Medicare and Medicare Services for help. And then
Hmm.
he should have came up here and helped our governor manage this problem and save lives instead of just running around blaming Donald Trump.
Would
Back
you
in
call?
February when the people were dying in Washington, that's when my congressman was impeaching a president with the most partisan impeachment ever in the history known to our country,
Would
instead
you?
of preparing like we should have been.
Exactly. Would you call before Congress the governors who oversaw and the health administrators that oversaw the calamity, especially in New Jersey, especially in New York and Massachusetts and Connecticut?
I definitely, what is sickening to me is you can go back into March. Our governor actually gave blanket immunity to all skilled nursing centers for
Mm.
coronavirus. Blanket immunity. So these families, like I said, some administrators did amazing and they saved their people. They worked very hard and diligently and did everything the right way. Others were completely awful. And there's
Exactly.
nothing that a family member can do because they have qualified immunity given to them by our governor.
Speaking of qualified
Now,
immunity, the states, there are many states, including Minnesota, California, even Colorado, who have considered taking away qualified immunity from police. Do you believe that that is an effective tool in terms of keeping neighborhoods safe?
well, I tell you what, add Massachusetts to that list.
Wow.
Our Our state representatives have already passed the bill, taking full qualified immunity away from the police, also taking away their right to due process. They want them to be able to go in front of a board, and the board decides, whether they can continue being a police officer or not, just because somebody had, a complaint against them. It's gone through our House, our state House, as well as our state Senate. And Charlie Baker's waiting for a bill right now. And not only that, our bill that our state has come up for our police officers is more strict than Minnesota's bill.
Whoa.
Yes. It is more strict than Minnesota's bill. I've been endorsed by a couple different police unions, and these guys are getting punished for absolutely doing nothing wrong. Our police departments out here have been phenomenal. They've done so much work year after year, reaching out to the community, doing community service, listening to the needs of the community, modifying and changing procedures. They've done great. There's no complaints. And yes, you can always do better.
Yes.
But yes, our state government right now is punishing our police more than Minnesota's police.
Tracy, we're run out of time in terms of talking with you, and what a joy it is talking with you, because you have all the lights on, in a sense of knowing exactly what to do with our economy, with the crime situation, with the budget. We didn't get a chance to talk about that much, but I'm going to bring you back in a couple of weeks, and that we will. But also life in general. And so I want to leave you with this last question, and it has everything to do with RBG. RGB, forgive me. Well, no, it's RBG. Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah.
I have it incorrectly put there, and I apologize. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a stalwart in advocacy for Planned Parenthood, for the 1972 decision of Roe v. Wade, which was an imaginary illustration done by the Supreme Court to allow that to occur. I wish I had that kind of magic in terms of writing checks for myself. But in the sense, she spent all of the days of her life impending 65 million Americans to death. And maybe not directly, but certainly indirectly in terms of her opposition and directly on the courts. I want to ask you, Donald Trump has to pick a justice candidate. What type of candidate, although you're running for Congress, you wouldn't be in the Senate, but what type of person would you see replacing Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
I like both the candidates that Trump has. I love the fact that he put out that list
Mm-hmm.
immediately. There's absolutely no surprises on that list. We've all known. It's not like he's just pulling a rabbit out of his hat. The whole Senate has had years. So even though it's coming down to last minute, they have had years to look at his top 5 candidates. I knew, I posted at least one. I didn't know about the second so much, but everybody knew who his candidates were and who these top picks were going to be. So there is no reason why, again, there's no surprises here. They've already been through confirmation processes on their
Yes.
own regard. I loved what, Senator Cruz came out and was very, very clear that there is a big difference between when you have a Senate and a president of the same party versus when you have a Senate and a president of different parties. And I loved how he was really clear that it's nothing political. It just says that this is what America wants.
Yes.
And when Barack Obama was there with Garland, you had you had, a Republican Senate and you had a Democrat president. That is not the time to make a decision. It's
Exactly.
not a clear view for what the American population has voted for. Well, that's not the case right now, and I think we need to move forward. And the big thing is too, is like you mentioned, she had the opportunity 10 years ago to retire,
Yeah.
and Barack Obama could have replaced her at that time. She would have been 77 years old, and that is a good long career. And
Yes.
she made the decision not to. So I think kind of like what Obama said, elections have consequences,
There you
decisions
go.
have consequences. And I don't think it's even a question, especially in regard to what Senator Cruz brought up. It just, and there's a precedent for it. There's a historical precedent for how to move forward. We don't have to recreate a wheel. And with the election going on right now and the fraud, and knowing that we are going to, what we have, coming up November, December, we need
Hmm.
a full court. We need
Yes.
a full court, and it's time. And I think you can go back, even looking at Trump's previous two appointments, they've sided against him. Just because he's the one picking them doesn't mean, our Supreme Court is supposed to be apolitical. And I
Yes.
think ever since Ruth Bader was on, we kind of forgot about that
I
because she's
concur with
been
you.
so political.
I concur with you, and that's the
Let's get
way.
back to an apolitical court.
That's we should be a strict constitutionalist court, which would be completely apolitical. It would mean that the Constitution speaks for itself, and you don't add anything to it. You don't become a legislator and an executive from the bench.
Right,
That is not your
right.
role. Uh,
Well, you know what? I know we
yes,
have to go, but I gotta. These career politicians, our Congress is so broken with the
yes.
20, 30, 40-year career politicians that can't get anything done. It is broken, and it's really messed up the other two branches. It's made the Supreme Court more politicized, and it's made the POTUS become all these executive orders. But if Obama didn't do executive orders, nothing would have gotten done. And if
Mhm.
Trump doesn't do executive orders, nothing gets done. We
Tra-
need to fix Congress.
Tracy, and with you are so elegant in terms of your expressions of the needs of our political system. And I appreciate you spending time with us. It won't be the last time. In fact, we're going to have you back in a couple of weeks. We want
I
we
hope
want
so.
you to win Massachusetts
It's going
too.
to go so fast.
I know
We have early voting. It actually starts October 22nd.
exactly. We need you back very soon. But Massachusetts too is winnable. You got
It's
33%
winnable.
with $36,000. How much of a difference if you got $100,000 in the next few weeks to help you run your campaign?
Oh, absolutely, extremely different. I would have the ability, and I can do a lot with a little.
Yes,
When you talk about
obviously.
being a fiscal conservative, I mean, being able to reach out again, to have a way to touch my JFK Democrats that are 65 years and older, that are asked what you can do for your country Democrats, uh, two mailings just to that age, and just to the independents, 65 years old, independents in my district. I could narrow this down and get my message out, and I think it's very doable. It's very doable. As it is, I'm just leaving it up to God and divine intervention. But with $100,000, oh my gosh, we could do amazing things. I
This
could run
woman,
$1 million campaign with $100,000.
this woman, $36,000, 33% of the vote in a blue state.
Dark
America,
blue.
wake up. Wake up. Not everybody in Massachusetts or Maryland or Virginia or you name the blue state, even California. Not
In
everybody's
my
thinking the same
district,
way.
Donald Trump got in 2016. Trump got almost 40% of the vote. And
This
that's at
is
least 20% higher this time.
Tracy could be a part of that red wave. And I would love to see you go up against AOC on Health and Human
Yeah, me too.
Services on that particular committee. Uh, how can people support you at this particular point? Do you have a website? Do you have a Twitter feed? Do you have Facebook? Do you
I
want
do.
people doing that stuff for you? Social media doing it for you?
The at Tracy for Congress that you got there, that's my Twitter. And I've been getting a lot of help on Twitter. The more the better, because Twitter is very difficult to get a following. I'm Tracy Lovvorn for Congress on Facebook, and that's probably where I have my biggest outreach and education and trying to touch people. And then my website is tracyforcongress.com.
There you go.
That's where I have donations. I have anecdote links. So yeah, tracyforcongress.com, Tracy Lovvorn for Congress, and at Tracy for Congress.
Ladies and gentlemen, and this is not Tracy's comments. These are my comments. This is my commentary. And before we go to break, I just want to thank her so much for being on. But I will say this with her present. Many of you all have donated tons of money and support to candidates that don't really need it. They're in red states. They're going to win 70%, 60% of the vote. They got it. They don't even wake up wanting to campaign because they know they've already won. Tracy works all day long, campaigns in the evening, even into the early morning, trying to get people to know that she cares about the seniors. She cares about you working. She cares about you being able to stay afloat in the midst of a pandemic. And you can see her because you haven't seen Jim McGovern unless you've been to Cuba. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a person that you want to send, a godly woman you want to send to Washington. Stop asking God to divine for you who he wants to send to Washington. He sent that person right here. And quite frankly, $5, $10, $25, $250, $250 going directly to her tonight could help her beat back a Fidel Castro jihadist of a Marxist. You can do that tonight.
And that's not even being, that's 100% true. That everything you just said was so much truth. And thank you so much for this opportunity. And any help, please, if you go to my Facebook page, Tracy Lovvorn for Congress, I think you'll get a really good feel for what we're doing out there and how much momentum we really have, even here in Massachusetts.
Listen, we're going to have Tracy back. I might even have her come back next week because I really believe, with great belief, that Massachusetts, too, would send a huge message to the rest of America. It would be, oh my God, do you know what you would do if you helped to make certain that seniors in her area knew that she was running and their absentee ballot could go in with Tracy's name on it? Oh my, you would change.
That's all we have to do.
Everything. Tracy, you'll be back next week because we'll treat it like an ad so if much. We got to. Tracy Lovvorn with us tonight. We thank you so much for being with us. Life, budget, crime, and the economy. You did extremely well. I didn't even get to immigration. I didn't get to China. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. I'll see you next week, Tracy.
So much.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can change the world. Good night. All it takes is for you to reach out and do something that you've never done before. It's very easy to tell me, listen, Ken, she's in Massachusetts. They're not going to win in Massachusetts. You were the same person who told me 3.5 years ago that Donald Trump was not going to sweep 10 battleground states and win the election, beating back Hillary. You were the same person. Don't be that guy. Not this time. Be that guy or gal that supports Tracy in victory. $36,000, 33% of the vote. If you raise $100,000 for her, just between now and the next time she's back, can you imagine what Jim McGovern would have to spend to try to keep his job? There's not enough gold underneath New York City for him to win. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, I want to thank our sponsor, Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. Voice call 360-978-5200 or go directly to them now, armedcitizensnetwork.org, and thank them for promoting our show. and supporting our show. Coming up in the second hour, Biff Zeppi will be with us, ladies and gentlemen. Not as attractive as Tracy, but Lord knows, just as smart. And we will be back with more of the best in urban conservative talk right after these messages.